Test, 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 test. Everyone, if you don't mind, can you please take a seat? We're going to start soon.
Taking my own legs here.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. The April 24th meeting of the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability is called to order at 6:31 p.m. We'll begin by calling the roll. Commissioner Gottlieb.
Present.
Commissioner Driver is present. Commissioner Minor. Commissioner Piemonte. Piemonte. Right? I got you. Commissioner Ruby Navarijo.
Present.
Commissioner Terry. Commissioner Wortham. With 4 out of 6 members of the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability present, we have a quorum and can conduct the commission's business. Before we begin, I would like to take a moment to formally welcome our newest commissioner and welcome her to the commission. On April 16th, the City Council confirmed a new commissioner to fill a vacancy created by the resignation of Commissioner Presley. Commissioner Piemonte was nominated by a committee made up of representatives from each of the 22 district councils, which is charged with nominating people to fill vacancies on the commission. By law, only people who were first nominated by the district councils can serve on the commission. The mayor then selected Ms. Piemonte, and last week she was confirmed by the City Council. I'll give her a moment to introduce herself briefly.
Thank you. Well, hello, and I'm so happy to be here. I'm so excited for my first meeting. I'm Gina Piemonte. I am a Cook County Public Defender. I've been in that office for, about 31 years now, both as a line attorney and in upper management. Right now, I'm the chief of the felony trial division. I think I have a wealth of experience in criminal justice issues that I think will be beneficial to this body and the work that they do. And I came in, I started last Thursday, so I haven't been here that long, but I'm hoping to have an impact and do my best and work with the community and with the commissioners to help and improve things in the city.
Thank you. I'd also ask that we take a brief moment of silence for Captain David Meyer of the Chicago Fire Department, who tragically lost his life in the line of duty. Thank you. The next item of business is public comment. If you would like to share something related to the commission's work on public safety and accountability, you have a few options. You can speak at a public meeting. You can also submit public comment in writing by emailing your comment to Community Commission Public Comment at cityofchicago.org. Again, that's Community Commission Public Comment at cityofchicago.org. Or you can bring a copy of your comment to one of the commission's meetings and give it to someone either on the commission or on the commission staff. People who wanted to speak during the public comment period tonight were asked to submit their names in writing earlier tonight. Names are then drawn at random by a member of the commission staff. Speakers will be called in the order in which their names were drawn. If your name is called to offer public comment, we ask that you approach the microphone and line up in order of which your name is called. When it's your turn to speak, please say your name and then spell your name and then offer your comments. Each speaker will have 2 minutes. We have allotted a total of 20 minutes for public comment. I will call you all in groups of 3s to approach the microphone. Our first speaker is Mr. Taiwan Sims. It's your Counselor Lee Bilecki is number 2. And number 3 is Edwin Castro White. Please approach the microphone and offer your comments.
but the most would be consideration against the and there's not having to deal with that stuff. I was arrested on April 16th, while I did see her, and I was taken to jail. I was jailed until the day released from county. That city county jail was simply trying to exercise my civil abilities of going in, talk to the city council about being homeless, being attacked on the street by, once again, coming dressed up like law enforcement. The lady don't want me to speak up and say, that's like guys like John Gonzalez, criminal. These people criminal, but they come in here, I gotta deal with it. So here, there's another JJ 2201113. I was arrested by my own attack by moving slow. And we just definitely like that because we come to these conditions, was not. So it's what we speak to the 50 year. The regular item you are once again really proficient at civil laws and how do we use that? How do I use that? How do I use that? Help me as a
Please direct your comments to me.
I'm the record to y'all, because I'm getting that. Don't ask me to address you when you sitting there.
All comments should be directed to the chair.
Question me. No, I should be helped. The commission was put together to help. The whole individuals like a lady that come here. We tired. Well, help me out.
That's your time. Thank you for your comments.
Time was enough, Mike. So I need your help.
Yes, sir.
I need your help. Because they pay y'all to do this. I don't get the $80,000. I'm not the one who get the $80,000. I'm not the one that's look. I need your help.
Thank you.
I need y'all help. I'm gonna go to trial.
We're good. There's no need to, we're good.
So y'all, so the citizens that look like they mad or the range or crazy, because they're not being angry. When we create.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening, everybody. Again, Gina, welcome. Appreciate your being here. Obviously, one of the agenda topics is traffic stop. I just, you should all have gotten stand up. I did a couple of players, updated some of the information. I know at the last listening session, I heard some of the district councils from the north side talk about the number of guns that come out of traffic stops, which is over 8,000. It's a small percentage. I don't know, 8,000 guns over 2 years, pretty significant amount of guns on traffic stops. But if you flip over to the what I did with COPA, and we looked it over, and it shows the number of complaints. That's the total number of complaints for almost 2 million traffic stops in the city of Chicago by Chicago police officers, and the amounts are on there. You're going to disregard the breakdown based on percentages. I mean, look at what we're looking at here. This is over 2 years, almost 2 million traffic stops. And 28 sustained complaints against Chicago police officers. That's it. 28. 30 not sustained because the explanation of not sustained is in there. Or it is 55 exonerated, 4 were unfounded. So when we look at this as from a perspective, are people being harmed? Or are they just being inconvenienced? I mean, I know Anthony, you and I would talk about this a lot. I think we get stopped by crimes, ridiculous. I think people get stopped for some violations that they probably shouldn't be stopped for. This is justified and justified. You know, you can listen to that, but the other side of the point is we cannot take articulate, reasonable decision we learned about over the weekend at training and take that away from police officers. We can't take probable cause. We can't take instant away from police officers. We cannot continue to take tools of law enforcement away from police officers. proud to do a job, and obviously get a lot of young scholars here. And when we talk about percentages, let's be realistic. You're in the numbers.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you, Doctor. Appreciate it.
My name is Ed Castro White. So I would like to make a formal complaint, to an event that occurred on April 19th. At King College Prep High School. I was harassed, so as a black gay man and a military veteran, I was harassed by off-duty Chicago police. At a Coco event hosted at King College Prep, and I was asked to leave the premises without any explanation. So I would like to make a formal complaint. And also, as well as the gentleman that approached us, they didn't give us a reason as to why. They just asked me to leave the premises. I was with an associate at the event. And that was pretty much what happened. I don't like the fact that I attended a publicly funded event and I was asked to leave. Anyone that, to the public, anyone in the public should be able to attend an event at their own will. I should not have been asked to leave this event. Also, yes, that's pretty much it. I would like this to be addressed. I would like someone to take accountability for this well. Because I don't appreciate being disrespected at a publicly funded event. And that's pretty much what I have to say.
Thank you. Our next three speakers are Jane Schaefer, Troy Gaston, and Alexandra Block.
Together, we can advocate for a collaborative approach to change your council members and the community. With the focus on ensuring that community engagement is not just a formality, but a meaningful and transparent part of our personal study. We're grateful for the community to invite us to a meeting yesterday where we had an opportunity to learn and provide initial feedback on upcoming community engagement effort. Our working group looks forward to supporting this effort, helping keep our communities informed and bettering their voices in the study. We'll be working with and encouraging the other district councils to engage their communities with all the study as well. We believe that transparency CPD has committed to the workforce allocation study will foster greater understanding and in turn help build the trust that is always been in public safety. This work is vital to the mission of district councils, reaching consent decree compliance, and ultimately to create a safer and more equitable city for all. Our working group is looking forward to hearing your update. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Troy Gaston, TROY. Sorry. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Troy Gaston, TROYGASTON, and I'm authorized to Black Lives Matter Chicago. I just had the opportunity to completely read the draft submitted by the commission in collaboration with PPG, attached to the PPG policy draft policy as well. After reading this policy and having communication, it was quick joining because I got the policy at exactly 2:33 today. I know the community support the analysis of the following commissioners: Aaron, Myra, Angel, and Gina. For a side note, me, I would say, Gina, you are a reference to fresh air. The gentleman came up here and talked about the history of traffic stop and statistical analysis around guns. I can't see how you can say that in the face of that to me. I thank the commission for its work. I want to hold my tongue because I was sad that something. And Commissioner said, you clear it out. You clear it out. And looking at Chicago Police Department.
That's your time. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ellen Black. I am the director of the Criminal Legal System and Policing Project at the East End Line. And I represent the plaintiffs in Wilkins versus Chicago, which is a proposed class action against the Chicago Police Department for its discriminatory mass traffic stop program. We want to thank CCPSA for all of the work drafting and commenting on a policy about how CPD conducts traffic stops. CCPSA has really done a fantastic job of community engagement, holding outreach sessions, listening, training the community feedback, and being very transparent about your work. We're really impressed with the care and thoughtfulness that each of you and the CCPSA collectively has put into this process. And we know that this is just the beginning. There's additional feedback expected, future negotiations coming with the city, the attorney general, and the monitor. Since CPD's policy draft and CCPSA's responses were only released today, we've not had a chance to fully digest them, but on first read, we want to express support for many of the CCPSA's majority positions, and especially the positions of Commissioner Piemonte, Minor, and Gottlieb. But there are three big picture concerns that we do want to highlight. First, reducing racial disparities in who stopped. Second, reducing the total number of traffic stops. And third, prohibiting pretextual traffic stops. We think these are big picture issues that are not addressed in either policy and really need to be talked about. First, reducing racial disparities. The policy doesn't address the fact that CPD's traffic stops disparately impact Black and Latino drivers. We know that CPD intentionally targets neighborhoods where most residents are Black and Latino for more traffic stops. We appreciate the CPD's suggestion to analyze traffic stop data, but the data needs to be used to fix these disparities. A second goal of the policy should be to reduce the total number of traffic stops. And the third goal to be prohibiting pretextual traffic stops. While the policy proposes a definition.
That's your time. Thank you.
Stops, it does not propose limiting or ending pretextual traffic stops, and we think that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next two speakers are Amy Thompson, Brad Kessler, and Jasmine.
Being commissioners, and welcome to Monday. My name is Amy Thompson, and I'm staff counsel at Impact Directory and a member of the Freedom Move Coalition. I'm here tonight to talk about the commission's development of the traffic stops policy. I want to thank the commissioners and commission staff for their hard work and dedication to moving this process forward and getting to this point. We appreciate your commitment to listening to the community and are grateful for your transparency in releasing CPD's draft policy, individual commissioner responses, and the proposed alternatives. We look forward to giving more specific feedback once we've had more time to review. However, even on our initial read, it's clear that CPD's proposed policy falls far short of what's needed to make meaningful change in CPD traffic stops practice. We know what the problem is. Each year, CPD makes far too many minor traffic stops as pretext to stop and fish for criminal activity that they don't have suspicion of in the first place. We know that Black and Latino drivers are disproportionately stopped, and data shows that stops are making our communities or our roads any safer. CPD's proposed policy does nothing to limit the prevalence of stops. It fails to ensure that CPD focuses on actual threats to public safety or traffic safety, rather than wasteful fishing expeditions.
And it lacks the clear restrictions that are necessary to rein in this practice. In order to truly solve this problem, the ultimate policy needs to directly address the issue at hand. It needs to do so by, at minimum, explicitly ending detention stops, by limiting stops for low-level offenses that often serve as pretext, and by ending suspicionless consent searches. Half measures that skirt around the core safety problem will only get in the way of much needed transformative and lasting change. A policy that just tapers around the edges rather than confronting the issue head on risks allowing CP strategy to continue just with a new code of paint. We can't waste this pivotal moment. To solve these problems, we have to have bold solutions. Let's work together to make sure the ultimate practice policy is both effective, transformative, and responsive to act to the problem at hand. Thank you for your work and for your time. Looking forward to more conversations to come.
Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Brad Kessler. I'm the Chair of the District Council. Welcome to the Commissioner as well. I wanted to bring attention to an officer that we lost in the 18th District on April 10th. And I'm not going to take up my time to do a moment of silence, but I do hope the Commission will do this. Melissa Torres, who's one of our CAPS officers in the 18th District, she tragedy her own life, came to the station after a shift at 2 a.m. and did it inside the bathroom of the station. She was a mom. She was a community advocate. She obviously the CAPS officer was who we reached out to continually and who was surrounded by us at any moment that we met her. I'm going to try not to get choked up because mental health is such a significant issue inside of this department. And I know the goal set for CP, the fifth goal was trying to figure out how to support mental health and to consider some predetermining factors and try to identify the officers that need it. I want to highlight on the way over weight on the far west side, just outside of Chicago and Homewood. It took me an hour and 45 minutes to drive Streeterville to the way. And a mom that has to drive that long out of her district to see her child is horrific to me. My wife is a surgeon and does whatever she can to support people while also trying to be an amazing mom to my kids. If anything we can do to learn from this, I want us as a city to not only focus on mental health, but think about how to bring officers actually into our communities, whether it's through incentives, to live in communities that are not from, but they want support, or to help them return back to communities that are from work. I support the workforce allocation study. I just think a huge part of it should be trying to figure out a program to get our officers into our communities, not just the police, but to live and hopefully be part of our families. So I think it's very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
Chicago, and, I just want to, say thank you all for finding, creative problems, integrity, problem, created, but it's done, and we see what's next there. But I do want to acknowledge the fact that, his body, and I think I've already said today, it's not my sort of comment, but his body was created because of the new, he created his body for public accountability and for public safety against police harm, right? So we all speak about how the community needs to work with the police, but it's a different thing, trying to work with police who actually wants to work with us, right? So we've been living in generations of wrongful provisions, torture, survival, stuff like that, what I fight for on a daily basis. My two loved ones, sitting in prison, right? Due to wrongful provision, right? So it's important when we fight for bodies like this to be created, that you guys never shy away from why you create. You know, it's people, thousands of men and women still sitting in prison, right? Because of these officers. How these officers are still on our force right now, getting paid by our taxpayer dollars, like city don't pay out millions in misconduct. So I just, every time I'm stressing that to you all, we know it is good cops, but the code of science and the FOP is real and they intimidate a lot of you all if we fought for to sit at these tables. And I just want y'all to understand that we are the many and we will stand with y'all and fight y'all. Not let these people scare y'all from doing the right thing. Justice is justice. Wrong is wrong. If they wrong, they need to be held accountable. That's all our organization been fighting for 50 years. And it seemed like the
the KKK, the racists and the real extremist people fight against us when all we fight for is right. Just continue to do the right thing, guys, respect each other.
Thank you. Our last speaker is Rhonda Smith. There, Rhonda Smith.
Actually, there's been several, people that have come up before me that have told on, research on stuff, and that's actually what I was going to speak on. But they said it all as well, Jackson spoke on the, long weekend, the torture survivors that are in prison. That was another subject. And I'd like to agree with the 18th District Council board member that said it should go back to police the neighborhood that you live in. This was something that happened years ago. Officers who lived in the neighborhood, the police in the neighborhood, everybody knew the officer. But then it changed. Anyone could live in the suburbs and still work in the city. They didn't have to work in the neighborhood. But I think it should go back to that. At least the neighborhood that you live in. That might change a lot of things. Lastly, I want to speak on the training of the officers. They mentioned mental health. There's a lot of, we read about a lot of the mental health cases where the person is killed instead of the calling the specialist to come in. They don't really have time to do that. Call specialist. One thing that is a solution. I think these officers should have better training and they should be specifically trained to deal with them instead of jumping to them. Because they are not in the same culture that person. And just all in all, for my time right now, all in all better training for mental health. Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes our public comment period. Thank you again to all of our speakers. We value your input. The next order of business is approval of minutes. Before today's meeting, draft minutes of the commission's regular meeting held on March 27th were shared with all commissioners. Are there any corrections to the draft minutes that have been circulated? If there are no corrections, I move that we approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the commission's meeting held on March 27th. Is there any debate on the motion? Hearing none, we will now move to a vote. Those in favor of adopting the motion to approve the minutes of the commission's meeting held on March 27th, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. The minutes are approved. We'll now move to new business. By ordinance, the commission is responsible for establishing goals for the year for the police superintendent, police board president, and the COPA chief administrator. The commission approved goals at our meeting in January. Then we worked over the course of the year to assess the progress that the superintendent, police board president, and COPA chief are making on those goals. As part of that process, CPD, COPA, and the police board are required to provide some public updates at commission meetings over the course of the year. Tonight, we'll begin our updates with two presentations related to CPD goals. We will then give a deeper update on traffic stops. Afterwards, we will provide all remaining updates related to Q1 goals, deliverables for the superintendent, the police board president, and the COPA chief administrator. To begin, I'd like to welcome Executive Director Allison Clark Henson to the stage to give us an update related to CPD's workforce allocation and community policing assessment.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to extend my thanks again for the opportunity to come and speak with you. And I look forward to your opportunity to do this and to do updates and conversations about work with allocation or other projects. I know we have a short period of time and a couple of other on my team that are going to talk, but just to begin,
Okay, that's. We go to the next one, please. One more. So real quickly, just a brief overview, the workforce allocation study, is intended to meet the critical requirements of the consent decree. And it really is to ensure that all of the proper staffing and resources for reform efforts are established and maintained. And it's really divided up to 6 key areas. You know, the first one is really around stronger supervision. And so what that would look like is that 10-to-1 ratio of the supervisors supervising their members, but more than that, it's the same supervisors the majority of the time. So they get to know the members they're supervising, and it is a manageable number of resources. The second piece to that is now these officers, I think we talked for a little bit about this, is that they're working in the same geographic area, so they do know community members, the resources in that community, the needs for resources, and so that's another really important piece to work with delegated side. The third part is talking about demand-based plans, so things like call for service, the 911 calls, response times, those things are all going to be factored into the analysis to determine what resources are needed where. We also have community policing integration to align with these neighborhood engagement strategies so that they're consistent with those. The total resource analysis is really trying to see where there are gaps currently where that we just don't have sufficient resources to effectively do the work. So they'll be looking into that, and related to that as well is civilianization opportunities. Is there work that can be done by skilled civilians, training up officers to then be working out in the field and patrol? So those are the 6 key areas that the workforce allocation study is going to be considering as they go through their analysis. Just a little background on the vendor that the consultant that was selected is Matrix Consulting Group. They're a California-based firm with over 20 years of experience. They've done over 400 police studies conducted across 45 US states and Canada. Their clients include major metropolitan police departments such as San Francisco and Los Angeles. They're led by President Richard Brady, combining decades of law enforcement leadership with key police consulting expertise. So a little bit about the 2 examples given. San Francisco study was a department-wide resource allocation study developing interactive staffing model for ongoing analysis. In Los Angeles, they did an extensive assessment of community policing and deployment and implemented a new 200 district system to better align resources with neighborhoods. I think just what I would like to highlight here, this study is unique because it is not just patrol centric. And I think we've seen studies in the past that was the only focus, and that's problematic. We need to assess resources across the department in its entirety, at every level, at every role, and that's what this study will do. And the other piece to it is a study that provides statement of recommendations. Yes, they're pertinent at the time of the conclusion of the study, but we need to an interactive model. What does that mean? As needs change, as resources or responsibilities change, this is a interactive model that then can provide further data-driven information as we decide where our resources are best. Next one, I think, sorry, timeline, sorry about this. So timeline is 12 months from the beginning of the work. You can go to the next one. This is just a visual of the timeline. So the project timeline here is just kind of breaking out all the way to the final report and presentations. The red stars are key areas where we're going to be working to get feedback from community organizations and community members. So we want to make sure that we have that built in, and those opportunities are provided to inform them and for them to provide feedback to inform us on the work that's made. So this Director Milton is going to take a couple of slides, but I'll be here for questions and then.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Deputy Director of the Department. I was going to do an update on the community policing assessment, which is planning to work with citation. I think as folks may be aware, the department launched an effort back last summer to do a comprehensive assessment of the department's community policing program, really looking at How does the department operationalize community policing as a philosophy, not just a program that many folks are familiar with being CAP in the district? So thinking about what does a CAP office do and how can every member of every district be engaged in some sort of community work activity. So if you go to the next slide, just a quick update about where we're at in this process. Next slide, please. So we launched Pepper, like I mentioned, last summer. We've been partnered with Civic Consulting Alliance and a handful of community-based organizations to do this work. On the left-hand side, there's 3 different inputs that we listen to the first phase of this assessment. The first being CPD perspective, where interviews and focus groups conducted with about 350 CPD members, which range from all across the department, both from control, sergeants, all the way up to the superintendent himself. Really engaging and asking to be asked questions around how do you do community policing? How do you see community-oriented policing being implemented going forward? What that look like? Another key input was community feedback. We had partnered with 8 community-based organizations. We hosted about 30 different community engagement sessions across the city at the end of last year. They engaged about 800 folks throughout their process. It was a co-led or a co-design session where those 8 community-based organizations really designed their own engagements on their own path, develop their own questions that related to this work, and work with CPD to provide their own recommendations and their own findings. And then finally, the last, the third input was the practice report. The department partnered with 21CP, which is a national consultant and research firm that looked at what do other cities do. Really looking at how do other law enforcement agencies across the country operationalize community engagement, what kind of programs do they do, what works for them, what may work for CPD, what probably won't work for CPD. We're just trying to get a more perspective. So these 3 inputs on the left side have been out completed. We're in the process right now of crafting a guide to law enforcement. We will kind of help guide who will go, what the philosophy for the community where it's public. And then the next week or so, we're launching another round of community stakeholder feedback. We're really going back on the community saying, here's what we've heard so far. Here's where these 3 inputs have gotten us. Take a look at them all. What if we not heard this first round of meeting today? We still need to think about engagement. Those 8 community-based organizations that continue doing public engagements for their organization. As Mr. Councilmember Schaefer mentioned earlier, we met with this council yesterday, looking forward to putting them more into this work as well. And then we're working with CCA as well. Alliance to continue to do benchmarking for operations against the state guidance philosophy, identify more gaps, and address state operating models. So we're looking more in depth at CPG's processes, people and capabilities, organizations and governance, partnerships, leadership and culture, measures and accountability, and then helping us to actually develop implementation plans moving forward. That will happen in the fall. So we're about to move on to the next one. So again, phase 1 of the engagement, community members express their desire to have strong relationships with officers, to be met where they are, from the safety of defense, better communication and input on priorities, and more visible personal officer presence. We were getting heard from the various stakeholders across the city. We also held focus with for council members, coalition members, community policing members, as well as the community policing subcommittee organization also on this work. Next week, we anticipate releasing all of those reports that were mentioned to be applied publicly, so they would be publicly available for folks to review and to read, and then we announcing the opportunity to share that. Again, as part of the case.
I know we're on the time, so I'm going to keep this quick. I'm Chelsea Gannon, I'm a project administrator in our reform management unit, and I am working under the executive director, working on the ethics foundation study. So just kind of outlining the link between both of these projects, there are mistaken scope, but they're deeply interconnected in practice. And so throughout the summer, I'll demonstrate how we're combining some of these engagement initiatives to ensure that we're able to collectively bring that feedback into both of these projects. Next slide, please. Okay, so connecting these two workforce allocations, I'm sure many of you are familiar, this is how we assign our officers across the city to meet those public service needs. And then how we build relationships, trust, and long-term safety in neighborhoods is more focused on that community policing effect. And we've structured our questions as well. So while these efforts are really connected, we're looking at things from the community to help us understand what successful community policing looks like. What should officers focus on when they're not responding to 911 calls, and where should they be most visible and why? So this is going to shape not just the community policing assessment, but also various components of the workforce allocation study. Next slide. So just wanting to give an overview, next slide please, thank you, of how the phased community engagement will look. So as you can see, where we've seen over the fall and winter, we've asked for broad, big picture ideas of what the vision for community policing is. In phase 2, where we're currently moving into for the summer, we're sharing what we've heard from that last feedback and then asking for input on these next steps, including things that will help us inform the staffing model. Phase 3, we're going to be focusing on into the fall as we have some of these preliminary ideas of what's coming out from the staffing analysis. We'll share some of those preliminary themes and also ask the community and our members, how do we put this into action? Obviously, the way that we would implement, changes and communicate changes in a district that will be receiving those is different than what we would see with the general public. So we're really looking to the community to help guide some of that preliminary communication. And then in phase 4, this is just standard informational updating on what the implementation plan is going to look like based on that phase 3 feedback. Next slide. So more specifically, going into the deeper input, we're looking at what officers should know before engaging communities, how they should be informed about updates to local resources if they're a new officer or if they're an officer that's been in that district and isn't aware of what new resources are becoming available. Also, what spaces work best for positive connection with CPD. This, of course, varies by neighborhood, and so being able to get that feedback is critical. Also, how we want to shape district priorities in their neighborhood, how we want to shape crime reduction strategy. And then again, as I mentioned, what activities officers should be prioritizing outside of 911 calls, and then where should they control local purpose? Those last two questions obviously very targeted towards the workforce allocation study. Next slide. And then finally, as I suggested, we have a webinar that will be coming up here on May 8th to be reporting out on a lot of this engagement. We encourage all of you to attend that. Of course, there will be summer engagement sessions going through May to July, and we'll be posting updates on those and providing access to that through our workforce allocation web page. The QR code is up here. Also, you'll see the transform. It is at the very top of that page as well. A couple of things that you'll see on our web page, just a general overview of the project phases. Really kind of encapsulate the whole project timeline, as well as core documents like the scope of work, the project proposal, the grant services agreements, as well as updates to the project as we have more of these outreach initiatives. Another critical component here is we have a Q&A forum that's open, so you'll be able to see what questions other people have asked and then responses to those questions. So in lieu of being able to have more public meetings like this, we encourage people to ask questions on that format, and then we'll be sure to provide those responses as very.
Thank you. Are there any questions from commissioners for the Chicago Police Department team that presented today?
Sure, I just have a quick question, just for the folks who are watching at home and who's probably could be potentially new to this process. You showed us a graph of the timeline. Can you just highlight exactly where we are in the process?
Hold that timeline slide. Yep. Okay, perfect. So as you can see, we are obviously in April. Right now, what we've just gone through is the conclusion of the initial interviews. This has allowed us to be able to set a staffing profile. Those of you from our steering committee meeting know this has been a 250-page document that we are now reviewing, having an iterative process with the steering committee and CPD members to ensure that that document is an active, accurate current state of the CPD. And then we'll be moving into the build out of the interim staffing or the interim framework report, which really outlines the methodologies, how you would assess a control model or how you would assess a control officer, versus someone like me in a project administrator role, it's the same methodology, so they're looking at each of those special roles and assigning a specific type of methodology to assess that. So that will be taking us into the summer, and then as you see us moving into the fall, that's where we actually start to see some of the first outcomes of the staff analysis itself, with the implementation plan being finalized in November.
Thank you. And I also know that previous, at least in the last season, there was a lot of questions about timelines and updates and delays. Is there any mechanisms on your website or resources where folks can kind of get a real-time view of the timeline?
Yes, that's on the right side of the webpage. They have like the current phases and you can see where we're currently in. It's an abbreviated version, so for any reason we have a much more extended need to, move some of these deliverables back, and we can update that on the webpage as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from commissioners?
Yes, I do have a question. So I know that there's an analysis related to the gaps, but has Matrix committed to providing any recommendations on what you all need to be fully functional? Because it's one thing to share with you how you're able to utilize what you have, but will they also say what you need?
So, they're going to, that's why this current state is so important to see where our present state is, but as they're conducting the study and identifying resources, those gaps, suggestions and recommendations as to where things may need to be changed for better efficiency, that will be included as part of the recommendations.
Thank you. And the other question I have is dealing with community engagement. So if you could share a bit about the organizations that you all are working with and how what's their strategy around engaging community to ensure that, you have a wide range of voices heard.
Build target area development core, Great Space Alliance, the Coalition for a Better Chinese American Community, Resurrection Projects, El Valor, Bright Star Church, and YWCA. So they were all really selected for obviously representing many different communities across the city, including many populations. We really looked at organizations that are open folks to have, interactions with police, many times it's harmful interactions. We recognize that. We're working with them very closely to make sure that those are going to be how they reach out. I think we recognize they're their own experts in their communities, in their own neighborhoods. So making sure that they're the ones kind of driving that work, driving their outreach based on what they know is best for their community. And we're trying to do what we can to support those efforts. All of their engagements on the next phase will be open to the public, and we'll be hoping to amplify their messaging, their outreach strategies as much as we can.
I have one question. You touched on it a little bit, but I was wondering if there's any more specifics you can give on how Matrix will use the community engagement sessions and reports to inform the workforce allocation study.
I can take that. So in part, some of the engagement that's already occurring has a large part to do with how we're currently structuring our community policing office. So a lot of the work that Mike's team had done is already informing that new structure, whereas currently, the CPD, Office of Community Policing, exists in one facet, and it's important for Matrix to understand where the department wants to go based on that community feedback. So a lot of what Matrix is listening out for is what we're hearing from the community, what the department intends to change, because they can't look at our current framework and say, okay, we can move these people around here to meet the same goals, because if this department is looking to change those goals or that structure, these things are all kind of happening at the same time, and so it's important that they're involved, they're hearing that feedback, hearing how the department plans on responding to that, and ensuring that the workforce allocation study is shaped in that form.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
One quick question. So this question is about expectations. So I know the community, I've heard from a lot of community members being being really excited about this study. And I'm wondering how we should think about kind of the outcomes. So I think it's pretty clear, right? We're knowing how CPD is using its resources, right? But will we know CPD should be using its resources, right? I think there's potentially a distinction between, and that doesn't mean that it's not valuable if we're just learning how they're being currently used, but will we be able to figure out Like, what's the best way to maybe reallocate resources?
So the fundamental, real, purpose of it is optimization of resources. So as we're conducting the analysis at every level of roles, responsibilities, and every bureau, obviously including control, it is identifying places where we can improve efficiencies, utilization of our resources. So that would be, a component as that would be resulting in that final analysis and those recommendations.
All commissioners good? Thank you so much to everyone who came from the department to present today. And, I would ask the audience and the folks who are watching to bear with me. This next part is very long, but it is important and it's detailed, so I am going to read it in full. I'll be providing some updates, some information about traffic stop policy development. On Monday of this week, the city of Chicago submitted two versions of a draft traffic stop policy to the Illinois Attorney General and the independent monitor and the consent decree between the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois. One version is from CPD and one is from the commission. The commission's version includes most of the language from CPD's version, but with some changes that a majority of commissioners think are very important. The policies were submitted to the Attorney General and the Independent Monitor because more than a year ago, the Independent Monitor advised the judge in the consent decree case that she thought traffic stops by the Chicago Police Department should be included in the consent decree. That would mean that changes to CPD's traffic stops policy will be made through the procedures laid out in the consent decree and will be overseen by the Independent Monitor and the federal judge in the case. The commission has always said that if traffic stops are included in the consent decree, the commission would need to play an important role. CPD and the commission have now been working together on the policy for several months. The policy will govern how CPD conducts, reviews, and trains officers on traffic stops and lays out how the policy will be assessed and potentially changed in the future. A majority of commissioners support most of what is in CPD's version of the draft policy, but there are very important differences between CPD's and the commission's version. We'll cover some important provisions tonight, but we encourage you all to look at the documents posted on CPD and the commission's websites. I'm going to start with the provisions of the policy that CPD and a majority of the commissioners agree on. The policy describes when and how the police department members can conduct traffic stops. It says that traffic stops must be conducted in a way that guarantees fair and equal treatment under the law. It says that CPD members will act in a way that promotes safe and positive police-community interactions and treats all people with courtesy and dignity. It also says that traffic stops will be conducted without bias and not based on factors like race, ethnicity, gender identity, or immigration status. The policy also lays out specific procedures that CPD members would need to follow when conducting traffic stops. For example, every traffic stop would need to be recorded on camera and CPD members would need to be clearly identifiable as CPD officers. The policy describes when it would be permitted for a police officer to remove a driver or passenger from a car or to handcuff the driver or passenger or to search the car. And it describes what police officers would need to communicate to drivers or passengers when any of those things happen. The policy says that every traffic stop would need to be documented in a stop report, and unless a traffic stop results in either a ticket or an arrest, CPD must give the driver a written receipt with information about the stop. The policy also says that at the end of every shift, CPD supervisors will be required to review every traffic stop to see if it was conducted and documented properly. Information about all stops will be publicly posted on CPD's website. Every year, CPD would do an annual report on traffic stops. And at least every 2 years, CPD would do a comprehensive review and assessment of traffic stop policies. And that process would include community engagement and work with the commission. So those are the key elements of the policy that commissioners and CPD agree on. One commissioner, Commissioner Wortham, does not propose making additional changes to the policy. A majority of commissioners think that some significant changes are necessary. There are two changes that a majority of commissioners think are especially important. A majority of commissioners think that certain traffic stops for vehicle equipment or license compliance violations do more harm than good and should therefore be prohibited with some exceptions. A majority of commissioners support limiting stops for 6 different vehicle equipment or license compliance violations. Based on CPD data, these stops account for a large majority of traffic stops that CPD carries out. For example, a majority of commissioners think that CPD shouldn't be able to make stops for vehicle registration that is expired within a year, having one non-functioning headlight, tail light, or brake light during daylight hours as long as the vehicle has one functioning headlight, tail light, or brake light. or a missing or improperly displayed front license plate, as long as the vehicle has a properly displayed rear license plate. A majority of commissioners also support providing exceptions to those restrictions, meaning there will be some situations when CPD could make stops for these violations. There isn't a majority view about what the specific exceptions should be. Some commissioners want to allow stops in those otherwise restricted categories if police have reasonable articulable suspicion or a Class A misdemeanor or felony, And some commissioners want to allow those stops when a police officer believes that the violation creates an immediate threat to public safety. The other big difference between CPD's draft version of the policy and the commission's draft version of the policy is about consent searches. A consent search is when an officer asks for permission to search a car and the driver gives permission. If the driver gives consent, then it is legal for the officer to conduct the search. CPD's version of the policy says that CPD could only conduct a consent search if an officer has a specific articulable information regarding suspected criminal activity, other than the activity that was the basis for the stop. This basically means that if an officer makes a traffic stop for, say, a broken tail light, and if the officer wants to search the car, when the officer asks for consent to search the car, the officer would need to have some specific information that ties the driver to suspected criminal activity. A majority of commissioners think that CPD members should only be able to conduct consent searches of a vehicle if the officer has reasonable articulable suspicion or probable cause of criminal activity, not just information about suspected criminal activity. Some commissioners think there should be reasonable articulable suspicion or probable cause of suspected criminal activity other than the basis of the traffic stop. Some commissioners think there should be reasonable articulable suspicion or probable cause of a Class A misdemeanor or felony. And again, one commissioner does not support making changes to CPD's proposed policy for consent searches. So there's a lot of agreement between CPD and the majority of the commission, and there are also some important ways that the majority of the commissioners don't support CPD's draft version of the policy. So where do we go from here? Submitting the two versions of the policy to the Attorney General and the independent monitor is an important step, but there's a lot of work ahead. Going forward, the City of Chicago, which includes both CPD and the Commission, will work with the Illinois Attorney General and the independent monitor to try to come to an agreement on the inclusion of traffic stops into the consent decree. If traffic stops are included in the consent decree, the City of Chicago and the Illinois Attorney General will try to come to an agreement on traffic stop policy. If the parties can't come to an agreement, the consent decree says that the judge can hear all sides and then decide how to move forward. As we move through the next phase of this work, the Commission will continue to get your input, and we'll try to build agreement with CPD, the Attorney General, and the independent monitor, and work to get the approval of the court. This is a lot of information. Again, we encourage you to look at the versions of the policy on the CCPSA's website. Next, I'd like to invite commissioners to share their perspectives if they so choose, and we'll keep listening and continue to refine this policy. This is just one step in the process, so please limit your remarks to 2 minutes. Are there any commissioners that would like to speak to this policy?
I would just like to acknowledge the amount of work and thank everyone who has been involved in this work, from the commission staff, the commissioners, from Lieutenant Kapistanik and his team, the R&D team who has been behind a lot of this work. Usually those who are running these organizations are who we hear a lot about, but there's a lot of work that has been happening, so I do want to acknowledge that. And I also want to be clear that this is just the beginning. This is the very, very first step. There is a lot of work ahead of us, a lot of time ahead of us. And so hopefully we will continue to see people caring about this issue, because it will not happen overnight. And so again, thank you for everyone who has been participating in this. Thank you for the community, for everyone, anyone who cares about this issue, because in order for us to get through this, we'll need you on this journey, because this is just one stop of a very long journey.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Gottlieb.
Thank you, President Driver. So I want to speak specifically to the issue of pretextual traffic stops. The research, along with community and expert testimony, that demonstrates that these stops are not effective, are often traumatic, and cause distrust between community and police. The Commission's draft policy addresses some really important traffic stop issues, but it does not do enough, in my view, to curb the practice of pretextual stops. So what is a pretextual stop? A pretextual stop is when an officer stops someone for a traffic infraction, but is not actually concerned about that traffic infraction. Instead, the real reason for the stop is to allow the officer to investigate that person for a separate, unrelated crime, a crime that they do not have strong evidence the person committed. The commission draft policy would restrict the use of 6 low-level traffic infractions and equipment violations, such as a broken taillight. These are the stops that right now are most frequently used in a pretextual way. So it's a great start, but it's not enough, and the reason why is clear. 10 years ago, these 6 low-level traffic stops were used much less frequently than they are today. At that time, stop and frisk of pedestrians was the primary way pretext was used. In 2016, CPD agreed to reduce reliance on pedestrian stop and frisk. Only then did CPD dramatically begin increasing their use of low-level pretextual traffic stops. With our current draft policy, it would be much more difficult for CPD to use the 6 low-level restricted traffic stops in a pretextual way. But if the past is any predictor of the future, there's a significant risk that CPD might respond to our current policy by pulling people over for other traffic infractions much more frequently, infractions that are not on our list of 6. Not because those infractions are putting the public at risk, but rather as a means to investigate individuals for other crimes when they lack strong evidence. We should learn from 2016. To best ensure that ineffective pretextual traffic stop practices do not remain the status quo, we need to do more than just restrict the use of the 6 low-level traffic infractions that currently have majority commission support. As Commissioners Minor, Piemonte, and I have articulated, it's necessary to explicitly prohibit the use of traffic stops as a pretext to investigate criminal behavior. That means that if you were to get pulled over for rolling through a stop sign, the officer could not use that infraction as an excuse to question and investigate you about a nearby burglary. The only way the officer could question you about that burglary would be if he had strong evidence you were involved. I encourage all of you to read the traffic stop documents the Commission has made public today. The position I've taken on this policy has been grounded in the conversations I've had with many of you. This material is complicated, so if you have questions about my position or have specific suggestions, please reach out to me via email. I'm looking forward to continuing to engage with you as we work towards the strongest traffic stop policy possible.
Would anybody else like to speak on the subject? Go ahead, Commissioner.
Currently, the commission holds 2 differing views on the exceptions of this policy. These exceptions are powerful because they would allow officers to disregard our prohibitions and continue traffic stop enforcement on practices of these low-level stops as outlined. A weak or subjective standard risks making this entire policy ineffective and or merely symbolic. Commissioner Godley, Piemonte, and I agree that these exceptions should be that an officer can make a stop for vehicle equipment or license compliance only when the officer has reasonable, articulable suspicion of a Class A misdemeanor or felony. A Class A misdemeanor per the Illinois Criminal Code includes crimes such as unlawful use of a driver's license, reckless driving, DUIs, hit and runs, street takeovers, fleeing or attempting to elude officers, possession of stolen property, unlawful use of a weapon, and a host of other offenses. While 3 other commissioners assert that the exception should be that an officer can make stops for a vehicle equipment or license compliant violation when CPD members believes that the violation significantly compromises public safety, my position is that the second standard would not stop the current practice of pretextual traffic stops because the standard is too vague and subjective. According to the language, it relies on officers' personal beliefs of an undefined standard of significant interference with public safety. To further dissect the language, our standard will require reasonable, articulable suspicion. In Illinois, reasonable, articulable suspicion means a police officer must possess a specific fact combined with rational inferences from those facts to create suspicion of a person. Whereas the second exception, an officer must believe that the violation significantly interferes with public safety. A belief is a conviction lacking necessary certain evidence, offering no safeguards against personal bias or stigma. For instance, an officer could argue that a loud sound system poses a significant public safety risk because studies have shown that noise pollution is linked to negative health outcomes and can interfere with one's driving ability. Even if you think an officer would not make this argument, there is nothing in our policy that would prevent it. However, our policy defines a significant public safety threat
in my view, with the second standard as conduct that would constitute at least a Class A misdemeanor, carrying a potential jail sentence of 6 months or more. This standard allows officers to address the situation where a vehicle or equipment violation facilitates more serious crimes. For example, like a loud sound system being used to aid a street takeover, which is a Class A misdemeanor. Furthermore, this standard offers consistency and oversight, requiring legal action if someone wanted to change a Class A misdemeanor classification. Lastly, this approach is already being used in the foot pursuit policy, GOA 0307, which limits pursuits to an offense of a Class A misdemeanor or higher. That said, I welcome community feedback on this policy, and I appreciate all of your insights. I believe that this is a promising foundation, and I'm committed to collaboratively developing a final version that reflects both written and verbal community input. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak on the subject?
I just want to say that I started in this position last Thursday, so roughly a week. Well, thank you, thank you. And you know, it was a lot to catch up on and a lot to digest, and there was a lot that happened before I got here that I really haven't been party to. But I will say in my career, I've seen firsthand the results of pretextual stops and the effects it has on the community as well as the police department. And I'm very excited to be part of this work. And I too, I'm looking forward to the next phase where I could be more of an active participant and hear from the community and help this move forward, because I really think that if we do this, we're going to have a safer city and a better relationship between the community and the police department. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank all my commissioners for having an open line of communication with me. I think whether you agree or disagree with us on the policy, stay with us. This is just the beginning, like Vice President Terry said. I think when I think about this policy, I think of the people that it has done harm to, traffic stops. I also think of the safety of the police officers doing the traffic stop. Unfortunately, my first funeral was for a police officer that was killed during a traffic stop. These are incredibly dangerous interactions that our law enforcement have both ways, right? Some people feel unsafe with the interaction during the police with the traffic stop, and the officer has sometimes have reasons to believe that their immediate safety is at risk. So you should understand what to expect from your Chicago police when you get pulled over. You should expect how they should conduct themselves. Moreover than that, there should be a system that when police officers are abusing tools that are supposed to be used to increase public safety, that there's a way that they can get remediated or they can figure out that problem. So I continue to support a balanced approach. I don't think that we need to increase interactions that could be harmful for both parties. I think we could do both. And I think that there has been changes in this policy that some commissioners agree on, and language is forthcoming and developing as we speak. So continue to engage with us. I also think a lot about resource allocation, right? How much time do we spend on traffic stops? Think about when you see a car pulled over, how much time are we spending on that? What I hear a lot from the district council meetings I go to is police officers don't respond to my calls. There aren't enough police, right? However, we're spending, I don't know, 500,000 traffic stops in 2023? How much time are we spending on all those traffic stops? And I also got to say the Safety Act changed a lot of the perspective of how police officers are thinking about public safety, crime, etc. And I think we could definitely piggyback off of that, but understand that officers have already sort of undergone that understanding under the Safety Act. And I think that we need to understand the difference between a traffic stop and what is extremely dangerous, which is actually covered under the investigatory stop policy, which I think should be, well, I think it is clear on the policy there, but I encourage everyone to read the entire policy in its length to really understand what to expect from a Chicago police officer, what your rights are, the purpose of why we should be doing traffic stops, and how we could learn from that information so we could make a better decisions on training, resource allocation, and et cetera. So I really thank the commissioners, everyone for having passionate positions on the topic. But our goal here is to keep people safe, keep people alive, and ensure that the resources we're using are being used constitutionally and efficiently. So I'm going to stick to my comments. I think 2 meetings ago, was it, that we were able to share our perspectives on this policy. I support a balanced approach. I think we could do both. And I thank everybody for your time.
Thank you, Commissioner Wortham.
Okay, good evening, everyone. It's no secret that I joined this commission, or I applied for this commission because my focus is public safety. It is also no secret that I have repeatedly said I believe the Chicago Police Department to be a vital partner, resource in increasing public safety in the city. I have also said that I believe law enforcement to be a profession. Just like all of you, I'm sure in the room have professions, and if I walked into your job and I'd never done it before, I would have no idea how to tell you how to do it. So when I approach this work, I see us as, yes, oversight, but also partners who ideally in working to create policy would listen to law enforcement and listen to their experiences along with the experiences of the community to craft policy. I'll echo Commissioner Terry, who said everybody on this stage put a lot of work into that, self-included, different kinds of work, different perspectives, but a lot of work. Several things have been said about my opposition to the proposed changes, specifically the restrictions and the elevated standards for consent search. My opposition to that is based in what I started my comments with. Law enforcement is a profession. They have a toolbox, just like all of us do at our jobs. I do not see this work, our job, as taking a tool away from law enforcement that they could use with their professional experience to do their job. I have listened to every single public comment. I have gone to every single listening session except the first one. And I believe the draft policy that the department put forward actually goes further than listen, it goes very far, I believe, to respond to a lot of the concerns people have expressed regarding the interactions during traffic stops. But to restrict a lawful traffic stop, and I'm also, I'll echo the recent comment, please read the policy and read the proposed restriction. There are proposals to take out the word lawful from the order. Why do we not want to start the baseline of the conversation with truth? First truth is, these are lawful stops. The officers are making stops that are permitted by law. This is an administrative body. So if there is a desire to say that these should not be lawful stops, that would happen at the state level. I have not heard, hold on.
Please, if you're a member of the audience, please refrain from commenting while commissioners are speaking. Thank you. Please continue.
So my desire is to ensure that the Chicago Police Department is doing the job that they are tasked with doing constitutionally, safely, with procedural justice to ensure the safety, yes, of the public and of police officers, and to ensure that they have every single tool in their toolbox to work to keep the city safe. It was said during public comment that I am an outlier. I'm so glad that that was said, because that's a perfect transition to my frustration about this process. In fact, for entire society, I am not an outlier. Sadly, in this echo chamber that we often see here, it sounds like I'm an outlier. But we have gone to listening sessions. We have seen survey feedback. I have talked to community members who absolutely do not want a tool taken away from the Chicago Police Department that is lawful and that they can use as a part of their total public safety strategy. So to say that my opposition to restriction is somehow radical is just not consistent with the reality of the totality of Chicagoans. And I am really saddened that this body that's supposed to be representative of the entire city.
I know that you do that, Commissioner.
You don't let me.
Jory, hey, please don't respond to people in the audience. I got it. If you can please not comment while commissioners are speaking. Just hold on. Troy. Please allow us to continue the meeting. She has a right to speak. Lee, please. We gotta get through this meeting. You are now doing the same thing he was doing. The next person that makes another outburst, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the meeting. Please stop. Please continue, and please do not respond to members of the audience.
I'll respond when I'm not interrupted. I won't respond if I'm not.
I've asked the audience I've asked them not to interrupt you. Please finish your statement.
I'm so glad things play out the way they do. This is why we have the echo chamber. This is why I am seen as an outlier, because people don't want to come and express diverse opinions because everyone is not as comfortable as I am in hearing this. And so what I hope as we continue our engagement on this is that we do hear more diverse voices, because I know that my perspective in wanting this department to have every single tool possible to keep us safe is not an exception to the rule. There's much discussion about the disparity in race in traffic stops. I am a Black woman. You know where else there's a disparity? In murder rates. And so it isn't a surprise that the overlap in increased traffic stops mirrors the overlap where we repeatedly index in 77 to 80% of murders every year, the Black community. So we can talk about disparities, we can talk about keeping people safe during traffic stops, we can talk about constitutional policing, but let's talk about all of it and let's make everyone feel welcome doing so. The last thing I will say, and I know this is not what my fellow commissioner meant, but I have to say this because it continues to come up. When people reference Chicago police officers who've been murdered during traffic stops, they weren't murdered because they conducted a traffic stop. They were murdered because a violent offender who was the subject of said traffic stop murdered them. And I think we need to center that whenever we reference a dead police officer in relation to traffic stop work. Thank you. I look forward to continued community feedback, and for everybody watching who's not at this meeting, please engage us. Please give us those diverse opinions, because otherwise it's going to continue to be said that people who want this department to have every tool are outliers, and I know that not to be the truth. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wortham. So I had a lot to say. I did not prepare remarks. Forgive me if I'm taking a minute as the meeting got kind of tense and the temperature rose to gather my thoughts. First of all, I would like to thank the members of this commission for their work on this policy, this draft policy. I would like to thank our staff. We are a short-staffed agency, and our staff has been working long hours every single day, every single week to make this happen. I also want to thank the many community members, the over 2,500 community members that we heard from. There are 5 listening sessions, the thousands of people who have responded to our survey. I'm very grateful and appreciative of the feedback that we received from you all. This is a very, very, very complex and tough subject. It's something that impacts every single Chicagoan who interacts with the Chicago Police Department. It's something that impacts every officer. So I'd like to start with just a personal anecdote for myself, or about why I'm in this work and how I approach it. I'm a person who, as I've mentioned, have been pulled over 5 times in the last year. 2 of those times, it was my fault. I had expired license registration, and I'm aware of that. The second time I was pulled over, I was on my way to the DMV to fix it. The other 3 times, 2 times I was not given a reason, and 1 time I was told it was because of a signal violation. I say that to say, I do believe some of those stops have been pretextual. And I do believe that officers who approached my vehicle and who looked at my vehicle saw that my car was clean, that I was speaking a certain way, and maybe they even recognized me. But the basis of the stop, what I do believe, was to look into my vehicle to see if I had something else going on. So I have experienced that, and it's frustrating for me as a person. I'm also a person who was violently robbed in 2023, and I wish those people would have gotten pulled over. I still can. It's happened to me so much that it doesn't really impact me, but I'll never forget how my mom felt when she broke down crying, knowing that 4 people put guns to my head and stomach as I was writing policy for the Chicago Police Department. There's a lot of nuance here. The officers who pulled me over, none of them are white. So as a black man, I have to sit and grapple with that because it was black people who pulled me over all 5 times, 4 times in the 2nd district where I live. I have to grapple with that. So as I'm approaching this policy and I'm listening to people and I'm learning and I'm initially coming into it saying, okay, I feel this way, but then you hear a motorcyclist or a bicyclist say, hey, when people are driving and it's nighttime and there's only one light, I don't know if it's a 4-wheel vehicle or a 2-wheel vehicle. I never thought about that. My perspective is broadened. Now I have to consider this biking community and how they feel about this policy. And this has happened over and over and over again, right? So in drafting this policy, we are trying to not only strike a balance, but keep everybody safe. One thing I did take exception to, I don't do virtue signaling. I'm not up here to pay politics. This is not something that I'm getting paid for. This is not something that I'm excited to do. I do this because I think it's a necessity. I think it's necessary for our city to do, to talk to all people. There was comments made, particularly by Commissioner Gottlieb and Commissioner Minor, that I take exception to. And I think we have to be real about this. There are 2 types of stops that officers conduct. One of them is a traffic stop. That's for a vehicle code violation. If your light bulb on the back of your license plate is out, that's a traffic stop. If your license plate registration is expired in the tag, that's a traffic stop. You don't have a seatbelt on, that's a traffic stop. If an officer has reasonable articulable suspicion, that is what's called an investigatory stop. So understand that I'm not here to virtue signal to you. If an officer has what they said, suspicion of a Class A misdemeanor or felony, they already have the right to pull you over regardless of a traffic violation. So putting that language in there to send smoke signals to people so that you can seem as if you're the most liberal or progressive, when the reality is it doesn't change anything, it's not helpful. And I think to say that it changes the entire policy, if this language is in there, I think that does a disservice to everybody who has been working on this. If an officer has reasonable articulable suspicion of a crime, a Class A misdemeanor or felony, that is an investigatory stop. That is not a traffic stop. Investigatory stops are already in the consent decree. That's already a policy around that. What we're talking about is traffic violations. So I took exception to that, and I want to set the record straight that there's nobody in here who's trying to give people an out or make a policy weaker. I see no need to pontificate and say words and buzzwords that makes people feel better when the reality is it doesn't do anything. It does nothing. We are not touching investigatory stops at all. If an officer has suspicion of a crime, they can't pull you over. They will pull you over. They should pull you over. What we're talking about is traffic stops. So I wanted to set the record straight on that. If anybody wants to respond, or we can move on with the agenda. Thank you, everybody.
I just want to say that at the end of the day, I am not here for external validation. I am not here to say that I'm the most liberal in the room. I'm not here to say that I'm the smartest in the room. I'm not here to say that I'm the best in the room. I'm here to do the work that I was tasked with doing. If reasonable, articulable suspicion was not a standard, then it would not be in other policies that we see throughout the nation, and it would also not be presented to us as an option in our discussions when we were considering drafting this policy. I believe that is a strong standard, and I believe that the reason why I believe that, I've already outlined that, and I will leave it to you all to make your own decisions, and I welcome your opinions just as much as I welcome my fellow commissioner. But I also want to make sure that the record is set straight, that I'm doing all the work that I can within my integrity and within the scope of my vision, my passion, and my goals for this policy. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to comment?
I would also like to respond. So I agree with Commissioner Minor in this case. Yeah, I mean, I think we have a different understanding of what our standard would do than what you said, President Driver, but I would just, the part I take exception with your comment is that you think it's virtue signaling. We have a disagreement, and I respect the fact that we have a disagreement, and I just disagree with you.
Thank you. I'll now pass it to Commissioner Wortham.
So as you all have said, the good news is this is just the beginning, truly. We've all said it, I think, in our remarks. Though there are these drafts out, please read them carefully and then ask any, I mean, I'm gonna speak for everyone, but I think everyone here will be comfortable. If you have a question, please ask us. And I think any of us would be happy to have a discussion with you about where we are so far. So moving forward, in that we are still gonna be looking for tons of community feedback. We'll continue obviously circulating the draft language. There will be a new feedback form on our website, on the CCPSA website. We're going to hold a district counselor webinar, a community webinar, conducting focus groups. Again, hopefully with President Driver, talk a little bit about particular constituencies that might have certain concerns about the policy, so holding some focus groups like that, holding a community event in central location, and then meeting with subject matter experts. So we are going to use all of this feedback, hopefully in the development of the final policy. And so please tell a friend, tell a neighbor to continue to engage with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next order of business will be reports and updates. We'll begin by discussing working group updates. And for that, first will be an update from Commissioner Minor on the CPD goals working.
Awesome. So this year, the superintendent had 6 goals that broadly covered the following topics: traffic stops, workforce allocation, the implementation of 2 commission-passed policies, community policing, officer wellness, and victim services. Thank you again, Executive Director Allison Clark Henson, for your updates and your work on the workforce allocation study, and the community policing assessment, and for answering our questions. We greatly appreciate you and your time. Commissioner Driver and I will be meeting with the First Deputy Tally to discuss the CPD's approach to workforce allocation before the study is complete and changes are implemented. The community policing goal also includes implementing recently passed GO 11 policy that describes how the commission, district counselors, and CPD interact. On April 16th, CPD and CCPSA held a joint training on the new policy where district council members and district commanders came together to learn how the policy will be in practice. In November 2023, the commission passed a policy which clarified and strengthened CPD's ban on police officer belonging to, participating in, or associating with criminal or biased organizations. This goal focuses on evaluating how CPD is enforcing the policy. This quarter, we learned the department has developed and submitted an e-learning training to the consent decree independent monitoring and the Illinois Attorney General. If there are no objections from the Attorney General or the monitor, the department will then implement this training. The department also worked with COPA to better track allegations that police officers had associated with or participated in criminal organization, bias-based organizations, or gangs. The hope is that this will make it easier to enforce policy and assess how well the policy is being enforced. Member wellness and support. For the last few years, one of the superintendent annual goals has been continuing to improve CPD's facilities. In 2025, CPD has a role in maintaining city government buildings, and they have been discussing maintenance issues, facility improvements, and developing a long-term plan to make significant changes to the buildings that need the most work. The goal also evaluates CPD progress on developing an early intervention and support system, an EIS system, to identify police officers whose behavior suggests that they may be at risk of problems in the future. The EIS system will be a part of a larger effort to support department members' mental and physical health and address the possible behaviors identified. CPD is currently working with an outside vendor to create a new system that will collect information about the performance of CPD employees, which will be an important part of this larger effort. The department anticipates having the system partially implemented in 2026. Victim services. For the superintendent's final goal update, the department recently launched the Office of Victim Services to provide assistance to victims of domestic violence and non-fatal shootings in several districts. This quarter, the department has also developed and began implementing a formal tracking system for services provided to victims, including referrals, outreach efforts, and the number of community members served.
Thank you. Are there any questions from commissioners?
Siri.
Thank you. Next, we'll have an update from Commissioner Gottlieb on the COPA Goals Working Group.
Thank you, President Travers. So for 2025, the COPA chief has 4 goals, including goals related to drafting a policy related to communication with the media and other stakeholders about open investigations, implementing a pattern and practice investigation policy, and a mechanism that improves public safety outcomes in Chicago, creating a mediation policy built on community feedback, and implementing a mediation program, and implementing a policy that defines and supports the collaborative relationship between COPA and CCPSA. Each goal had specific Q1 deliverables. Regarding the media and stakeholder engagement, COPA reported that it's begun the work of reviewing current policy and engaging experts. They report that they have reviewed their current policies and have contacted 6 other oversight agencies and 6 law enforcement agencies on ways to improve its policies. Regarding patterns and practices, COPA reported that it has reviewed current policies and identified revisions, outlined a plan to achieve the goal by the end of the year, the types of stakeholders that they will prioritize for outreach, and has provided a description of its process, which will conclude with a review by senior leadership and the public. For the mediation goal, COPA provided a robust Q1 report, including its approach to community engagement, which began with engagement and partnership with district councils. COPA reports that the community engagement plan was discussed with a group of district council members from each of the 5 police areas. Engagement will continue with the public safety professionals and subject matter experts. COPA plans to finalize its community engagement plan in Q2. Finally, regarding finalizing and implementing a policy that supports a collaborative relationship between COPA and CCPSA, COPA reports that it has begun looking at other policies that could be helpful models, and that they have started reaching out to subject matter experts to get input.
Thank you, Commissioner Gottlieb. Next, we'll hear from Commissioner Ruby Navrijo on police board goals.
One of the police board's powers and duties is to adopt rules and regulations for the governance of the Chicago Police Department. These rules provide the standards of conduct for the department. The police board president's goal for 2025 is to conduct a comprehensive review of the rules and regulations to determine which existing rules and regulations should be revised, modified, or deleted, and to identify new rules and regulations that should be implemented. This will ensure that CPD's rules and regulations align with the principles of 21st century constitutional policing, promote transparency and accountability, enhance community trust, and foster equitable and effective law enforcement practices. These rules and regulations, which have not been updated since the 70s, are there to promote respect between the policy and community, guide officer conduct and behavior, and help maintain a system of accountability and discipline. I laugh because one of the rules is you can't smoke out of a pipe. I haven't seen a police officer smoke in a pipe. Matter of fact, I haven't seen a police officer smoke at all. Maybe I'm not looking in the right places. But anyway, it is essential that public confidence be maintained in the ability of the department to investigate and properly dispose of complaints against its members. Additionally, the department has a responsibility to seek out and discipline those whose conduct discredits the department or impairs its effective operation. The rights of the member, as well as those of the public, must be preserved, and any investigating arising from a complaint must be conducted fairly, impartially, and efficiently, with the truth as its primary objective. President Cooper reported that conversations are currently in progress with public sector stakeholders. This includes conversations with Superintendent Snelling, COPA, and the Department of Law. The police board has also spoken with past police board presidents about previous attempts to rewrite these rules. The next phase of the work will be to engage the broader community, including district counselors and members of law enforcement. CCPSA will have President Cooper present at a meeting during Q2 to review the process and give the community an overview of the role these rules and regulations play in the accountability system. Reviewing these rules and making any needed changes is critically important to create more fairness for officers and the community around discipline. Any changes to these rules will not impact tactical or police actions that are done in accordance with suites of other policies. We look forward to updating you on this very important work.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any questions from the commission? Hearing none, we'll now move to an update from Commissioner Terry on the COPA Chief Administrator search.
On February 28th, the position of the COPA Chief Administrator became vacant following the previous chief's resignation. By ordinance, the commission is responsible for choosing a new COPA chief, who will then need to be confirmed by City Council. We will be holding a virtual listening session on April 30th. At the listening session, we would like to hear from the community about what qualities we should be looking for in the next COPA chief.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we'll now move to what I believe is our last update on the Community Engagement Working Group, Commissioner Minor.
Thank you so much. The Community Engagement Working Group has definitely been busy. One of the things that we did was we had a community engagement listening session with the policy working group with students from MICFA Challenge to talk about traffic stops. We really wanted to get the youth perspective in the room, and they had a lot of insightful updates for us. One of the things that I walked away with that really stuck with me from that session was one of the students said that police anxiety is inherited through generations. One of the conversations that we had was about how these young students some of them never had a traffic infraction or experienced a traffic stop, but a lot of them felt afraid for when it would come. And they talked a lot about their parents' experiences, forming their opinions, and also social media. I also attended a few district council meetings this month. So I want to just say thank you so much to your district counselors that provided that outreach to me. Thank you so much to community members who took me up on that charge to have more conversations with me and ask me about anything that's going on with the commission and wanted to get more insight. I'm definitely excited to have more engagements like this in the future. So I attended District 6 district council meeting, and we talked a little bit about traffic stops, teen takeovers, and youth violence prevention. I know that District 6 has been very intentional and reached out to all of the commissioners, and a few other districts did the same. So thank you so much for doing that. I also met with District 15 in Austin and talked about pretextual traffic stops, the mayoral task force, and alternative response work. It was a super great meeting, and it was the first meeting I took outside. We was in a community garden, and I really appreciated that. I will be meeting with District 4 soon. They actually asked me to meet at their district council meeting today, but of course there was a conflict with the commission meeting. And I also am working with District 6 to be a panelist for the Youth Summit in their district. The District 6 the District 6 counselor has been working with her commander to put it all together. And I also did a career day at Hedges Elementary School to talk about the work on the commission and my public policy pathway.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Commissioner Minor? Hearing none, we'll now move to miscellaneous business. Is there any further business before the commission?
Yes, I just wanted to acknowledge the elected officials in the room. So thank you so much, Alderman Laspada, for being here. Thank you so much for our district counselors. Oopsies, I always get you mixed up with Laspada, Brad, I'm so sorry about that. Thank you so much for our district counselors, Ashley Vargas, Beth Rochford, Jenny Schaefer, Brad Kessler. Dion McGill. Oh, hi, Alderman, would you want to stand up? Thank you so much for being here. Is there any electeds that I missed that's in the room? Would you like to just introduce yourself? Thank you so much for being here. Oh, yeah, and Aaron. Awesome. Thank you so much. It's so awesome to have district counselors in the room. When you first walk in, please make sure to sign this green slip so I can make sure to continue to acknowledge you, and thank you for the work that you are doing for our communities.
Thank you. The commission's next regular meeting will be held on May 29th at 6:30 at the South Shore International College Prep. Are there any other comments from any commissioners before I close?
Just, you can connect with the commission via social media. Our Facebook is www.facebook.com, Chicago CCPSA, or the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability. On Instagram, you can connect with us at CCPSA_Chicago. That's the same for Twitter. And on YouTube, all of our meetings are recorded, and that's at Chicago CCPSA. And I see a lot of new faces, so please make sure to follow us.
Thank you to everybody that came out tonight. Meeting adjourned.